I walked into her kitchen for a simple favor. Then my ex, her sister, and forbidden desire collided in a single, unstoppable moment. I didn't plan to be in her kitchen that late. Not with the lights turned low and the rain tapping the window, like it had something personal to say. I was only supposed to drop off a charging cable I borrowed weeks ago. That was the excuse I kept repeating in my head as I stood there, holding the stupid thing like a peace offering. But she opened the door barefoot, hair slightly messy, wearing a soft gray sweater that looked impossibly comfortable, and suddenly I forgot what excuses were. "Come in, if you're already here," she said, brushing back a curl that kept falling over her cheek. She always had this way of making simple sentences feel heavier, like she meant more than the words aloud. I stepped inside. The air was warm, quiet except for the clock ticking in uneven beats, almost like it was nervous too. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms, studying me with that calm, older woman kind of patience that made me feel both seen and undressed. I never knew where to put my hand around her, so I kept switching the cable from one to the other, pretending it mattered. "You didn't have to bring it tonight," she said. "I know," I answered. The words slipped out before I could filter them. "But I kind of wanted to." She blinked, slow, thoughtful, like she wasn't expecting honesty this early in the evening. The silence stretched, soft but charged, the way it always did around her. She had this quiet presence that pulled things out of me I didn't intend to reveal. Maybe it was the way she listened without interrupting, or how her eyes stayed on my mouth a second longer than needed when I talked. Maybe I imagined that last part. I probably did. Or maybe I didn't. "I made tea," she said suddenly. "You want some?" The offer was casual. Her voice wasn't. And my "yeah, sure" came out too fast. She turned, reaching for mugs on the top shelf. The sweater lifted slightly, revealing the curve of her back, the small stretch of skin just above her waist. My breath caught before I could help it. She noticed. Of course she noticed, because when she set the mugs down, she didn't look at me right away. She pretended to focus on the kettle, fingers tapping against the counter, faintly restless. "You're quiet tonight," she murmured. "I'm thinking." "About what?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I didn't have the courage to tell her that most of my thoughts lately had her name tucked somewhere inside them. That I remembered the way she laughed at my stupid jokes. That I replayed our conversations at night, stupidly trying to hear her voice again. She turned slightly, giving me a small, almost shy smile, something I hadn't seen on her before. "You don't have to say anything you don't want to." "I want to," I said. And I did, but the words stalled again, stuck somewhere between my chest and throat. She stepped closer, slow enough to make my pulse thicken. She wasn't touching me, not even close, but the warmth of her body felt like it wrapped around the air itself. "You look like you're carrying something heavy," she whispered. "You can let it down for a minute, you know." Her hand hovered near my arm, not touching, just close enough to feel the invitation. My fingers twitched, wanting to close the distance, wanting too much. And then, a sharp knock rattled the door. She froze. I frowned. "Are you expecting someone?" Before she could answer, a familiar voice carried from the hallway, muffled but unmistakable. "Hey, open up. We need to talk." Her face drained of warmth. Her eyes flicked to mine, wide, startled, guilty. I hadn't heard that voice in weeks, but I knew it. My ex standing outside her sister's door, and the older woman beside me. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. The kettle clicked off behind us, but neither of us turned. She whispered, barely audible, "Don't open it." The knocking didn't stop. It came again, short, irritated, the way she always knocked when she was already annoyed. My ex, at her door. I stepped back instinctively, my pulse thudding in my ears. She, her older sister, pressed a hand flat against her own chest like she was trying to steady something inside herself. "She'll go away," she whispered. "She never goes away," I muttered before I could stop myself. Her eyes flicked to mine, soft, understanding in a way that made something inside me loosen painfully. She knew. She knew more than I'd ever said out loud. The knocking turned into a voice again. "Come on. I know you're in there. Just open up." I swallowed hard. "She'll see my shoes. She knows them." She shut her eyes briefly, biting her lower lip. A small, helpless gesture. "Let me handle it." "No," I said too quickly. Too protective. Too exposed. She opened her eyes, surprised by the sharpness in my voice. Another knock. Louder. We both flinched. Before she could respond, my memory dragged me backward, uninvited, unwanted. The last fight with my ex replayed in sharp flashes, her accusing me of drifting, of hiding something, of being absent even when you're in the same room. She was right, but not for the reason she thought. Because somewhere between those months, I had started looking forward to conversations with her sister more than conversations with her. Not in a romantic way at first. Not in any way I could explain. Her sister was quiet where my ex was loud, patient where she was impulsive, grounded where she scattered. And I hated myself for noticing. I hated myself even more for not being able to stop. The older woman moved toward the door, pausing just before the handle. Her fingers hovered above it, trembling. "You don't owe her an explanation," I whispered. She whispered back, "Maybe I owe one to myself." Her voice cracked on the last word. Just a hairline fracture. But enough. She opened the door, only a sliver. I stepped behind the kitchen wall, out of sight, heart hammering so hard I swore it shook the dishes. "What do you want?" she asked her sister, tone calm but stretched thin. My ex scoffed. "Why didn't you answer earlier? I've been trying to reach you." "I was busy." "With what?" A pause. A suspicious, narrowing pause. I could feel her eyes scanning the space behind her sister. "Nothing," the older woman said quietly. There was something in that nothing that made my chest tighten. A lie that wasn't really a lie because we hadn't done anything. Nothing physical, nothing spoken, but something was happening. Something neither of us could name. My ex sighed dramatically. "Fine. Whatever. Just call me later. I need to talk." "I will." Door closed. Silence, thick, shaking, filled the kitchen again. I stepped out from behind the wall. She stood with her back to me, hands still on the door, shoulders rising and falling like she couldn't decide whether to breathe or break. "That was close," I whispered. She didn't turn. "She thinks I stole something from her." The words were soft. Too soft. "And did you?" I asked before I could think better of it. Her head tilted slightly, just enough to reveal the corner of her profile, and something wounded in her half-smile. "I don't know," she breathed. "But I'm afraid I'm about to." I moved toward her, not touching, but close enough for her to feel the warmth of my hand hovering near her arm again, the same way she had hovered near me earlier. She didn't pull away. She didn't move at all. Just one slow inhale, one slow exhale. And when she finally turned to face me, her eyes didn't look confused anymore. They looked like someone standing at the edge of something she shouldn't want, but couldn't stop leaning toward. She was still facing me, too close for either of us to pretend we didn't feel it. Too close for someone who just lied to her sister. Too close for someone I shouldn't even be looking at like this. "I shouldn't," she whispered. "I know." But neither of us moved. She looked up at me, slowly, like she was afraid of what she'd see, and something in her expression made the air tilt. A softness that felt dangerous. A vulnerability I'd never been allowed to see before. My hand almost rose to touch her cheek. Almost. I caught myself just as my fingers brushed a strand of her hair, lightly, accidentally, stupidly intimate. Her breath hitched, and then her phone buzzed sharply between us, breaking the moment like glass. She flinched and stepped back. I felt the loss in my chest more than I should have. "It's her," she murmured, not needing to say the name. "My ex." The screen lit up again. 5 missed calls. 2 messages. "You should answer," I said, even though I hated every word. She locked the screen without reading anything. "Not now." The kettle clicked again behind her. Unplugged but cooling, a tiny, pointless sound that felt louder than the truth hanging between us. She turned away, running a hand through her hair. This is getting messy." It was already messy. That made her laugh, faint, tired. "You think I don't feel guilty?" Guilt. Yeah, that was the thing I kept trying not to see on her face. But before I could answer, the front door clicked. Not knocked. Clicked. Unlocked from the outside. Her shoulders straightened instantly, like she'd been struck. "Who has a key?" I whispered. She didn't answer. Her jaw tightened, eyes widening just enough to terrify me. Footsteps entered the hallway. Slow. Heavy. Familiar. She closed her eyes for half a second, just one, and in that single blink, everything inside her shifted from guilt to dread. Then a man's voice drifted toward us. "Why is the house so quiet?" My stomach dropped. Her husband. A name she rarely said, but never denied. I froze, every muscle clenching like I'd been dropped into ice water. She turned to me, panic flickering across her face for the first time. Not dramatic, just real. Too real. "You need to," she whispered. But before she could finish, he stepped into the kitchen doorway. Tall, confident, work coat still dripping from the rain. His eyes swept the room, lingered on the two mugs, the kettle, the cable I still held like an idiot. Then on me. He raised an eyebrow. Didn't know we had company. My throat locked. She stepped forward quickly. He just stopped by. To return something. Right. He didn't sound convinced. But he didn't confront us either. He simply walked past, placing his keys on the counter with a metallic clatter that rattled my bones. Then, quieter. Next time, call before you show up. People misunderstand things. It wasn't a warning. It was a threat disguised as courtesy. I tried to breathe. It didn't work. She glanced at him, then at me. Just a flicker, a silent apology wrapped in something else. Something I couldn't name. Her hand brushed mine under the counter. Barely a second. Barely a touch. But it was enough. Enough to say don't leave. Enough to say I didn't want this. Enough to say we're already too far in. Her husband turned his back and walked down the hall. She exhaled shakily. We need to stop, she whispered. But her fingers were still touching mine. Barely. Softly. Refusing to let go. I don't remember walking out of her kitchen. I just remember the sound of her husband's footsteps fading down the hall and the pressure of her fingers still lingering against mine, ghost-like, impossible to shake off. She pulled her hand back first. Not fast, not guilty, just slow enough to show she didn't want to. Then she stepped away, arms crossing, body angled like she needed the counter to steady herself. You should go, she whispered. But she didn't look at me when she said it. Do you want me to? My voice cracked embarrassingly on the last word. Her jaw tightened. I want things to go back to normal. That's not what I asked. She finally looked at me, and the look alone nearly buckled my knees, because it wasn't anger or guilt or fear. It was wanting, raw, conflicted, barely contained. This isn't fair, she said, pressing her palms into the counter. You were younger? I cut in. Your sister's ex? Someone you're not supposed to care about? Yes, she said, shaking her head. All of that. And yet you do. She inhaled sharply, like the words hit her harder than I intended. Don't put feelings in my mouth. Don't do that. Then say you don't. I whispered. Her eyes flickered. Her silence answered for her. A door closed down the hall. Her husband, maybe changing clothes, maybe listening, maybe pretending not to. I stepped closer, every movement slow, cautious, as if approaching a wild, nervous animal that could bolt at any second. You're shaking, I murmured. I'm not, she insisted, though her fingers trembled as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I'm just overwhelmed. By me. Her lips parted, closed again. She looked away. Don't do this, she said softly. You don't know what you're asking for. But I did. I knew exactly what I was asking for. One honest moment. One truth she couldn't hide behind age or fear or marriage or guilt. Tell me it's just harmless, I said. Tell me I'm imagining everything. She swallowed hard. You should be imagining it. That's not what I asked. Her breath stuttered, barely a sound, but enough. Her eyes glistened, not tears, just pressure. Pent up, years-old pressure, cracking through the surface. Then everything fell apart at once. You think I don't feel wrong? She whispered sharply. You think I don't lie awake knowing I crossed a line long before tonight? That I kept letting you in, even when I knew better? That I hated myself for noticing you? She stopped, realizing too late how much she'd admitted. A confession half-spilled between us, irreversible. And what about him? I asked quietly. Do you still love him? She flinched, visibly, painfully. Not because of the question, because of the answer she couldn't say. Before she could respond, her husband called out from down the hall. Are you talking to someone? Her eyes snapped to mine, wide, terrified, trapped. Go, she mouthed. But she didn't step away. I should have moved. I didn't. Instead, I reached out and gently, recklessly, cupped the side of her arm, my thumb brushing her skin in the smallest, most dangerous touch of my life. She closed her eyes, just for a second, as if the contact burned and relieved her all at once. Please, she whispered, voice breaking. Don't make me choose right now. Footsteps approached. Her breath hitched. My hand didn't fall. The hallway light flicked on. And just before her husband appeared in the doorway, she opened her eyes and looked at me like everything she'd been holding back was about to spill over. Her husband stepped into the kitchen doorway just as I dropped my hand from her arm. Too late to be innocent, too early to be undeniable. His gaze moved between us, slow and deliberate, the way someone reads a room they already suspect is lying. What's going on here? His tone wasn't loud. That made it worse. She stepped forward first, instinctively shielding me with her body. A gesture so subtle he might not notice, but I did. Her back straightened. Her breath steadied. Nothing, she said. We were just talking. He looked at the mugs. The distance between us. Her flushed cheeks. Talking, he repeated, like he was trying to word on for size and finding it didn't fit. Before either of us could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and I watched his expression shift, sharp and sudden. He lifted the screen toward her. Your sister, he said flatly. She's been messaging me. A lot. My stomach dropped. The older woman froze. Why? He read the message aloud. If he's there, tell me. I'm on my way. My ex coming here. Now. A chill crawled up my spine. Her husband looked directly at me. Why would she think you're here? Silence. Thick. Damning. I opened my mouth, but the older woman cut in quickly, too quickly. Because she thinks I'm... She trailed off, stuck between lies she couldn't finish and truth she couldn't afford. And then he said the words I wasn't expecting. Are you two involved? Her inhale was tiny, but it pierced the room like a scream. No, she whispered. No, he's just... But that just hung in the air, empty, shaky, unbelievable. He stared at her, then at me. Then something broke across his expression. Not anger, but realization. You've been distant for months, he said to her quietly. But you said it was work, stress, your family, everything except this. She shook her head, voice trembling. It's not what you think. Then tell me, he demanded. Tell me why your sister is on her way here to see him. Her silence answered for all of us. He swore under his breath, stepping back like the room had tilted. I trusted you. Her voice cracked. I didn't. Nothing happened. But something was going to, he snapped. I can see it all over you. She flinched, not because of his volume, but because he wasn't wrong. I took a step forward, ready to say something, anything to pull some of the weight off her shoulders. But she shot me a tiny, desperate glance. Don't. If I spoke, I would make it worse. Footsteps thudded outside, fast, determined, familiar. Her sister. My ex. Her husband turned toward the sound. She's here. The older woman covered her mouth for a second, breathing through her fingers. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with the raw panic of someone watching their life fold in on itself. She can't see you here, she whispered to me, stepping closer. Too close. She'll destroy everything. She already is, I said quietly. Her husband turned back to us, voice colder now. You need to leave, right now. But she didn't move aside. Instead, she reached out, just once, fingers brushing mine in a helpless, trembling little touch that said every word she couldn't speak. I froze. She froze. And then, a sharp, furious knock at the door. Her sister's voice sliced through the house. Open the door. Now. I know he's inside. The older woman let out a small, broken sound, half helpless, half longing, and looked at me like this was the moment everything might shatter for good. The knock rattled again. Louder. Sharper. Insistent. My heart hammered in rhythm with it, echoing in my chest. I looked at her. She was trembling, caught between fear and desire, between the life she had built and the life she wanted to reach for. Her fingers found mine again, holding on as though she could anchor herself through me. I felt it, the pull, the impossibility of it, and the thrill that terrified us both. I can't, she started, but the words faltered. Her eyes, wide and glistening, met mine. I shouldn't want this. I shook my head, desperate. Stop saying that. Stop pretending it's about what you should or shouldn't want. I'm here, right now. That's all that matters. Her hand pressed harder against mine. My thumb brushed the back of her wrist, careful, tentative, but it was enough to make her inhale sharply. She closed her eyes for a fraction of a second, and in that breath I saw it. Every regret, every longing, every unspoken word that had been hovering between us for months, condensed into one fragile, fleeting moment. Your sister, I said softly, aware that every syllable carried weight. She can't hurt this. Not tonight. She swallowed, lips parting slightly. I don't care about anyone else right now, she whispered. The front door handle rattled again, frantic, impatient. Her sister's voice bled through, calling my name, but her face didn't flinch. She stayed there, her hand in mine, breathing as if holding herself together required holding on to me. And I realized something. She was choosing me. Not safely. Not perfectly. Messy. Terrifying. But her choice. I leaned closer. Her hair brushed my shoulder. She smelled like rain and something warmer, something intimate. The temptation was almost unbearable. I wanted to close the distance, wanted to kiss her, wanted to erase every boundary and every rule in one reckless motion. She raised a hand, barely lifting it, almost in protest, almost an invitation. If we do this, I know, I said. I know exactly what we're doing. Her eyes searched mine, something like fear, something like desire reflected in the dark irises. This doesn't make sense, she whispered. Life doesn't have to make sense. I countered, heart hammering, hands still barely touching hers. It only has to feel right. And then, an audible click. Someone's phone unlocked. Her sister, probably reading a message, probably knowing we were here. The world outside our bubble was closing in fast. She squeezed my hand once, then released it. A tiny, deliberate act, like a choice she didn't fully explain, but one I understood. She was stepping forward anyway, letting herself feel this. The hallway remained silent for a heartbeat. Then, her lips were inches from mine. The tension hung between us, electric, unbearable, suspended. Breath mingled. Hands hovered. Eyes locked. And before the kiss could happen, the front door burst open. Her sister's face appeared, disbelief written across every line. We froze. Her gaze flicked to me, then back to the open door. And in that fraction of a second, everything we'd been holding back, everything that made this forbidden, impossible, messy, beautiful, hung in the balance. Will we step back? Or finally step forward? No one moved. No one spoke. Just two hearts hammering in sync, and a choice still unmade. The door slammed shut behind her sister. Not violently. More like a punctuation mark on a sentence that had stretched too long. Silence fell, thick and palpable, and finally we could breathe. I looked at her. She looked at me. Everything we'd left unsaid, everything we'd tried to bury under excuses and fear, hovered between us like fragile glass. And in that quiet, I realized nothing else mattered. Not the age gap, not the consequences, not the people who would judge us if they knew. Right here, right now, we were all that existed. I thought I shouldn't feel this, she whispered, voice trembling. But I do, and I can't stop. I stepped closer. My hand brushed against hers, not hesitant anymore. Neither can I. Her eyes softened. That careful, measured exterior she always carried cracked into something real, warm, human, vulnerable. She smiled faintly, like she was daring herself to hope. We're reckless, she said. Maybe, I admitted, but sometimes the only way to live is to be reckless. We laughed softly, the sound tentative at first, then steadier. It wasn't perfect, it was messy, awkward, honest, and it felt like home. I reached for her hand again, this time holding it deliberately, feeling the pulse, the warmth, the subtle tension of every suppressed desire. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned in slightly, just enough for me to feel the gravity between us. I don't know what happens next, she said, but I want to see. Then we see together, I said, step by step. No shortcuts, no pretending. Just us. She nodded. Relief, longing, and something daring flickered across her face. She touched my cheek lightly, and I felt it, every doubt, every risk, dissolving under the sheer force of honesty. Outside, the rain continued, but it didn't matter. The world kept moving, indifferent, and yet here we were, suspended, fragile, yet grounded in each other. We didn't need perfection. We didn't need answers. We only needed this moment and each other and the courage to let it exist. I leaned closer. Our foreheads touched. Breath mingled. Time slowed in a way that felt both terrifying and right. The kind of moment that doesn't need words. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I was finally exactly where I belonged. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Let's figure this out together." Together, I echoed, the words settling in my chest like a promise we didn't need to fully articulate to understand. We didn't kiss, not yet. Not because we didn't want to, but because some things are too powerful to rush. Some moments are meant to linger, delicate and electric, like the space between heartbeats. And as the rain streaked the windows and the kettle cooled on the counter, I realized life wasn't simple, love wasn't perfect, but right here, with her, it was as real as it could ever get. We'd stepped into something messy, forbidden, unpredictable, and somehow, against all odds, we were exactly where we were supposed to be. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Love Letter subscribe for more emotional, slow burn, human feeling romances.